Hi everyone, you're watching the virtual Amicus and I'm Jay Lodha. Well, they say that the real merit of a man lies in his humility. And no matter how many milestones a person achieves, never forget where he came from and never ever forget where you landed. So humility and merit that go together, and that is what the virtual Amicus subscribes to, solving legal questions they're doing in the simplest of the way so that it is easier for everyone to understand it. So today's topic for discussion would be on the Cambridge L.L.M Master's Program. And just to give you a brief introduction about the topic, Cambridge is unanimously ranked as the best law school in the UK over so many years by all major national academic league tables, one of the most prestigious colleges in the world, known for its law programs. And the law faculty at Cambridge offers world-renowned, internationally respected LLM, which is the master's program. The one-year course that they offer and that they teach is highly qualified it is taught to highly qualified, intellectually outstanding students the opportunity of pursuing their legal studies at an advanced level in a challenging but supportive environment. Now, in its rich traditions, attracts students at the highest caliber, both from both common law and civil law jurisdiction. It is intended for those who wish to pursue further legal studies after completing their first degree in law, including those who are considering academic career as an option, or who intend to practice law, or who want to take a career break seeking to broaden their intellectual horizons. Now, when we talk about notable Indian alumni from the University of Cambridge, that includes the three Indian former prime ministers who studied at Cambridge: Jawaharlal Nehru, India's first prime minister. Subsequently, it was Rajiv Gandhi and Dr. Manmohan Singh. Srinivas Ramanujan, the largely self-taught mathematician genius, was also from Cambridge, and so was Mr. Harivansh Rai Bachchan, the famous poet. And talking about the legal luminaries, when you talk about Indian legal consultants such as Zia Modi, Dr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi, Honorable Justice Pratibha M. Singh, and there are so many of them. The list goes on and on. So joining us today on the virtual Amicus is another notable alumnus from Cambridge. And just to give you all a brief introduction about our Amicus, we are joined by Mr. Vinayak Bhandari. He secured All India rank of 34 in AILET 2008. He completed his BLLB honors from National Law University, Delhi in 2013. He went on to complete his LLM from the University of Cambridge, UK. And since returning from his master's, he has been litigating across courts in Delhi. He began his practice as an associate of Mr. Siddharth Agarwal, senior advocate, and he's also worked under Mr. Sham Diwan, senior advocate. Now he practices independently. And if that was not it, he has also shown keen and avid interest in sports as well. He completed the Ironman 70.3 distance triathlon in Dubai back in 2015. I think, Vinayak, we need to have another session on this triathlon and to discuss how you managed to do that, because that's indeed a very big achievement. So thank you so much, Vinayak, for taking our time for doing this session for us. It really means, a lot to me and my entire team. That anything that you wish to say before we start?
No, thank you so much for having me, Jay. Uh, it's always a pleasure to speak to you.
Very well. We can start with our Q&A segment. If you're set, we can start.
Yes, please, whenever you're ready.
Absolutely. So, question number one: at what stage of the LLB undergrad course did you decide to study further and pursue the master's program?
I started thinking about it in the fourth year of law school because that's when you start considering all your options, right? What you want to do after the fifth year of law school gets over, whether you want to take up a job or if you want to study further. I started thinking about it in the fourth year. And that's also probably a good time to start thinking about it because it's a long application process. You have to think about a lot of things, which perhaps we'll come to in the course of this interview. So yes, so the brief answer is I started thinking about it in the fourth year.
Very well. And in a nutshell, if you can tell us, when is the applicant required to start with the preparation of the application process? What all is required, in terms of the prerequisites when you talk about a robust CV, the statement of purpose, good grades, internships, etc. What are important for building a good application for the purpose of securing an admission there?
So like I said, you should begin thinking about it if you're seriously considering applying, because you should start thinking about it at the end of your fourth year or in the beginning of your fifth year, because the application process itself takes quite some time, because the process, briefly, it involves uh, preparing your CV. It involves preparing your LORs. So you have to reach out to your professors. You have to reach out to anybody you've interned with to give you a letter of recommendation. And obviously, you have to prepare a statement of purpose. In Cambridge, they had a different format, at least in the year that I was applying to it. On their website itself, they had a set of questions that we had to ask as a part of the application process itself. So overall, it served the same purpose as a statement of purpose, but it was just a different format. And the reason I say you should begin early, early being the beginning of fifth year or the end of fourth year, is because you'll naturally be applying to a bunch of places, a bunch of colleges, if you're considering the LLM seriously. And every college has different requirements. You have to read all of those carefully. You have to try to be as specific as you can about where you want to apply. So you talked about what all is important to make a good application. Of course, a strong CV is most important. You have to have good grades. You have to have done your internships. You have to ideally have published in articles, published articles in journals or books, etc. That's the standard form of a CV. Although, of course, nothing is written in stone. You may throw someone off the page by having different, better experiences. But these are the standard things that perhaps an admission counselor would look at while grading an application. Your statement of purpose is, or like in the case of Cambridge, that set of questionnaires that were given to us, they basically try to understand how well you know the college, how sure you are about applying to what you are applying for. So if you make your statement of purpose, there are a specific number of things that you can keep in mind. A few of those are trying to be specific about what you're applying for, why you want to do the LLM, in particular, why do you want to take up the course that you're taking from. Some say that you get a letter of recommendation from your employer or any place that you've interned at, but Cambridge had a specific requirement that you get your letters of recommendation from any two professors. So that's what the process that year was.
Very well. I'm going ahead with our next question. So, did you shortlist any of the law schools other than Cambridge? And why, in particular, did you narrow it down to Cambridge Law School? Was it because it is regarded as the most prestigious law college, or because of the prestige value that is attached to the course that you had ultimately opted for?
So yes, of course, I had applied to a number of law schools, especially in the States, and I got through a number of them as well. But I was particularly keen about Cambridge, one, obviously because of its history, but secondly, because the reason I actually started even thinking about the LLM was because in my third year or in my fourth year, I had done a moot in the National Law School of Bangalore. And the moot problem over there was based on the law of restitution. And one of the most popular professors of the law of restitution is a professor called Professor Graham Virgo. He was the one whose books I had happened to refer to for that book, for that moot. And it was just one of those subjects that you chance upon in law school and you sort of fall in love with. So law of restitution was one such subject for me. And I would every time go to Professor Graham Virgo's writings or books to learn more about the subject. And so therefore, following his path became the natural choice for me. And that's what sort of took me to choosing Cambridge over the other places.
Very well. And now, when we talk about master's program at the Cambridge, very prestigious Cambridge University, what all courses are available, and which ones would you recommend to the viewers who are watching?
Oh, there are so many actually. If you just make a cursory visit to the website, you'll find there's about 35 odd courses that they offer every year in the LLM. I can tell you the ones that I took. So the law of restitution was one of them. I'd taken international criminal law. I'd taken foundation of international law. but there are some other really interesting courses also. There is one course on international commercial litigation, which has always been very popular, but unfortunately the year I was there, they weren't offering it, but that's back on the charts now. I believe so. My friends had taken the course on competition law as well, and they were very happy with it. So yeah, but of course they've got so many other courses, and the professors in each course are the leading names in those fields. So you can rarely go wrong with it. Whatever piques your interest, you should go for that.
Fantastic. And now, how rigorous was the course at Cambridge? If you can talk about and talk us through the examination pattern, the lectures that are conducted there.
I'm sorry, there was a bit of a lag. I couldn't hear your last question.
Yeah, sure. I'll repeat it for you. So, how different are these courses? That are taught at Cambridge. How the lectures that are conducted there. How different are they from the ones that are taught here? If you can talk about the examination pattern and how rigorous are they?
So I'll tell you, well, rigorous, anything is as rigorous as you can make it, right? In terms of how the classroom lectures were conducted, actually they were quite similar to what was there in NLU Delhi. It was a typical classroom teacher student method where the professor would come, you'd have 40-45 minute classes, and that would be the end of it. It was usually a monologue, but the difference is in the small group classes that were always encouraged by the professors. You always had the option of submitting papers on any topic that you chose from within the subject that you had taken, and to have virtually one-on-one classes with the professor. Usually it used to be small group discussions of, you'd end up being 3-4 students with the professor, and those were the classes, those were the small group discussions which were really they were the really popular ones, and they were the distinguishing factor in from a university in India and abroad, because that's really what gave the course its depth. That's where you could choose a topic, research on it, make a paper, go to your professor and talk about it in depth. And the greatest thing over there was that despite the so in India you always have a sort of a hierarchy with a professor, and professors are not always that approachable. In At least in Cambridge and with the professors that I had, I thought that that is one other thing which was very different. The professors were very approachable, despite being some of the biggest names in their field. So you'd have one-on-one discussions on a regular basis with those professors who would be willing to suffer your foolishness for long hours.
So I think being approachable is one key thing.
Yes, I'm sorry, you asked about the examination pattern. So at
Yes,
least
yes.
in Cambridge, the examinations took place right at the end of the term. So it's a 9-month, 10-month LLM, and the exams take place right at the end. So usually, student psychology seems to, make everything more rigorous towards the end of the course. And that's also what used to happen here. The last 3 months used to be a scamper for everybody, although the small group discussions that you had and the papers you wrote through the year helped you in those last 3 months as well.
Wow, first 8 months, you can have a great time, and then subsequently the last three towards the fag end of the course, you realize that how tough Cambridge is going to get. Now, when we talk about the master's program, did it benefit you here? And would you like to share any memorable experience from campus life or the lesson, any lesson that you've learned on campus?
So I guess those are two different questions. The first being, does it help me here? Well, it can help you anywhere, right? I'm litigating in India. So now I met some really good friends. I made some really good friends in Cambridge, some really good Indian friends who actually I've ended up working with so much since I've come back in the litigation field that, I can't help but say that, that's been one of the benefits of the litigation program, of the LLM program at Cambridge. In terms of lessons were, I mean, abound, and there were so many. I mean, you learned what excellence truly was, You saw it almost everywhere, whether it was in academics, whether it was in sports. I'll give you an example. Of course, in academics, you know that the best professors taught you, and they taught you how to read, they taught you how to think, they taught you how to write. If that's something you didn't necessarily end up doing in depth in your undergrad, this is where you came and realized how it should be done. The professors are, it goes without saying, and I've said it earlier, that they're so approachable and they are the leading names. So, you know, they teach you and you can see excellence on a daily basis there. That's all, one from the professors, secondly also from your batchmates, because some of them are truly the best that the world has to offer. And the other amazing thing about, you know, just general excellence all over in Cambridge was, I'll give you an example from the sports team. So for example, rowing is a very popular sport in Cambridge and in UK in general. So the reason you'd see excellence on a daily basis is that you'd see, so the rowing team of Cambridge is they are coached by former Olympians. So the culture of sporting excellence is also of a different level altogether. It's something that we don't get to witness here. So yes, your life lessons come, you end up encountering them on a daily basis when you least expect it, and in all kinds of spheres. So that's
Very well. So I think it's more about being approachable to your fellow students, and then one-on-one interactions that you have with such professors. We know when you talk about mentor, Vinayak, who was your mentor here and who helped you with the application procedure, and who was your mentor there who helped you finishing with your master's program?
so to be honest, I don't think I can say I had one mentor. I just reached out to lots of people who had done their masters, whether in Cambridge or in other universities. So I made it a point that whoever I would know, I would ask them their experience through the application process, and what all they thought was important to focus on in the application. So my mentorship, as far as the application process was, came from that. Otherwise, as far as the LLM program itself was concerned, like I told you, you know, you have your specific professors who pique your interest in different things, and you know, they sort of become your mentors. As far as those courses are concerned, there are so many different facets of your life in that 1 year in Cambridge, and academics is one of them. So as far as the academic portion is concerned, it's the specific professors who help you, and I can definitely say that Professor Graham Berger was one such person for me.
Fantastic. And now coming to my personal favorite question, what would be your piece of advice to all the young law graduates, young lawyers, law students who wish to apply to Cambridge? Who, Cambridge is a dream law school for so many law students for a master's program. What would be your piece of advice to all of them?
Well, my piece of advice, well, it's simple. If you can go for the LLM, if it's not too much of a financial burden, then definitely go for it. At whatever point in your life you can, I think you definitely must. It has so much to offer. The experience over there is so different from what a traditional university in India would offer to you in terms of everything, so to say, in terms of the academic culture, in terms of just the independence that you experience while staying in an international country by yourself, or in terms of the peer group that you have. And of course, it may multiply in terms of the opportunities that you have in your career, if you so wish to. Yeah, if you so wish to look at that aspect. So if you have the option of doing an LLM, I think it is definitely something that's worth a life experience.
Very well. And now when we talk about scholarships, so does Cambridge offer any scholarship? And what is the criteria? Is the financial
So there are so many scholarships. Cambridge offers a bunch of scholarships. For example, the Gates Trust offers a scholarship, which is a very competitive scholarship. There is also the Chevening scholarship, which is offered. There are also other very, there are other scholarships that are more generic, so to say. They're not specific to Cambridge, but they may apply to any master's program. For example, the Commonwealth Scholarship, there's the Tata Trust Scholarship, etc. I just remember Justice Pratibha Singh has started a scholarship for intellectual property law in Cambridge as well. So that is also there. Besides that, there are a bunch of specific scholarships that the particular college that you are in Cambridge that they offer. So one can look out for those. And otherwise, you may also find that in India, different states offer different scholarships. So if you reach out to your state government, some of them may be willing to help you.
Nice. I think these scholarships were also mentioned by one of the speakers who, there were a couple of speakers who had graduated and did their masters from Oxford. I think the same set of scholarships
Right.
are, yeah, correct. So,
Yes, there are some others that are specific to Oxford also, but yeah,
Oxford.
largely.
Correct. Now going ahead with our next question, does Cambridge guarantee hostel accommodation? Now their parents were worried and they're anxious, the children, sending their children, and will they be guaranteed an hostel accommodation there?
No, so does it, it does guarantee accommodation. Yes, it's a part of the application process, but where you get that accommodation, that is not something
Correct.
that's guaranteed, because you may get it on campus in your college, or you may get it off campus. So basically, Cambridge is a university town. It's like a full city. And I must say, it's the most beautiful city in the world, at least as far as I'm concerned. So, and you have different colleges. It's like, imagine Delhi University. It's like a huge area, and there are different colleges. In Cambridge, it's just a bigger version of Delhi University, and those colleges also have accommodations within. You may get accommodation within that college if you're lucky, or you will get accommodation outside of that college, but within the university area.
And lastly, how's the placement situation there pre and post COVID?
So I wouldn't be able to tell you post COVID, because of course I went in 2013 14, but the placement scene, so it's unlike what you have in universities here. You don't have a specific recruitment committee, you don't have a placement committee. It is mostly up to you and your, so quote unquote, hustle. But the great thing is that you have the leading law firms from London coming down to Cambridge every now and then. They keep hosting events. So there are great networking opportunities almost every few months. And there's so many of the good law firms that end up coming there, that you almost always have an opportunity if that's something that's of interest to you. And obviously, if you do the LLM in UK, it sort of gives you an outlet to so many people in London. So, for example, if you end up wanting to litigate there, it's a great opportunity to, the LLM becomes a great starting point to connect with anyone outside of the legal fraternity, outside of the academic fraternity. Because otherwise, as an Indian, you may not have access to the lawyers or the law offices in England and in London. So the by virtue of being a part of the LLM program at Cambridge, you get so many of these opportunities to meet these law firms and individual practicing lawyers that they enhance your career prospects.
Very well. And any parting words before we wrap this up? Anything that you wish to say towards the end?
Well, I think there was one question that you had asked in the middle that I think I forgot to answer. You wanted to, you probably asked me what was the most memorable thing that perhaps happened in Cambridge. So if these parting words excite anybody to apply there, then I'd be very happy. So I'll give you an example of, so the most exciting thing in Cambridge is basically that you're steeped in history. You can literally smell it in the air over there, right? So, for example, I'll tell you, on New Year's Eve, we were all hanging out right outside or in the neighborhood of Stephen Hawking's house. And of course, at that time, he was alive. So it was such an exciting thing and such an unusual atmosphere to be in. You know, another example of how so many things that have been shaped in the world are stem from Cambridge. So there was this other very popular hangout spot for students. It was called, so it's a resto bar. So it was called the Eagle. That was the place where the structure of the DNA was announced for the first time ever. So there's so many such. So I'll give you another example of one thing we just chanced upon. So we were in the library at Trinity College in Cambridge, and we just at the end of the day we were heading back to our university, our own colleges, and a bunch of us, like 3-4 of us friends, we were in the library over there, and we um, on our way back we bumped into Professor Amartya Sen, which was just almost serendipitous because Dr. Amartya Sen was he obviously was a dean at Trinity College and of course a Nobel laureate. So it was very surreal to see him, meet him over there. So all such experiences are rather common over there. One other really interesting aspect is that, for example, there is an offshoot of Newton's apple tree is placed outside the Trinity College campus. So there's so many different corners of historical relevance over there, that you're almost never bored in a place like Cambridge. So I hope that's something that sort of excites people to take on a course over there. Those would probably be my parting words.
Fantastic. Now, I'm too tempted to ask this question, but is there a rivalry that is going on between Oxford and Cambridge? Or do you wish to comment on it? Or we
Yeah,
keep hearing this in India. Yeah.
of course there is, right? There, well, perhaps the top colleges in England for a very long time. In fact, they were founded also almost 800 years back each, and the rivalry has stuck around since, also enhanced by the fact that if you're applying for your undergrad program, you can only apply to either Oxford or Cambridge. Of course, there's so much more to the Oxford Cambridge debate that's the rivalry, that of course there's the boat race, which is so famous and has become such a big deal. But all of those things will probably call for another episode.
Wow, there. Thank you so much, Mr. Vinayak Bhandari, for all your valuable insights, valuable inputs. Honestly, this session was more like a virtual tour, wherein we visited the campus. We were a part of the faculty, and it's so much of fun when you talk about your experiences, the lessons that you've learned. And I hope this session will help in realizing so many dreams. It's always a dream for any law student to make it to the Cambridge University. And so thank you so much once again to all the viewers who are watching. Our email is mentioned on the screen. In case if you have any of the queries, feel free to write to us on our email. You can directly contact the Amicus as well. We'll be more than happy to forward the query to our Amicus for this session. Mr. Bhandari, thank you so much once again for taking out time for doing this session on the Cambridge University Masters L.L.M program. That's goodbye for now. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.